This is the Dream It Alive show. I'm your host, Ash Kumra. Today's guest is no better or no worse than our other guests. We have such an amazing person today. It's really awesome to have this individual. I mean, he truly represents what is all about giving back, paying it forward, and how to make the world be a better place. Pastor Hank Fortener is the founder of the world's first adoption crowdfunding site, Adopt Together. He alone has adopted 8 kids from 5 countries, and he has had with 36 other foster siblings, and he's a huge adoption advocate. He dreams of a world with no more orphans, and most recently, as of this interview, I believe he did this past weekend, he created the first World Adoption Day, at least something of a large magnitude, and we're going to get into that story, we're going to get into his journey, we're going to learn how a one person can create a global movement. I mean, I've always been inspired by revolutionaries and thought leaders and people that can really radically change the world. And it's no different with Hank. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that he's accomplished and how he raised over $4 million in a crowdfunding campaign. It's definitely quite a feat. So without further ado, Pastor Hank, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ash?
Hey, doing good, man. Well, first off, congratulations on your World Adoption Day.
Thank you. Yeah, it was yesterday, and we are still sort of catching up and kind of pieced all the things together just to watch what happened. We have our World Adoption Day hangover. It was just an unbelievable day that went better than we could have even imagined.
Well, why don't you first tell us a little about your background, how you got to be where you are, and then we'll dive into this phenomenal adventure that you created this weekend.
Cool. Yeah, I started. I was born to a family. My mom and dad had 3 of us biologically, and then my mom and dad decided my mom says she was put on earth to be a mother, and my dad says he was put on earth to make her happy. So my mom said we're going to foster kids. She wanted to open up our home. We weren't wealthy by any means. We were, I would say, maybe lower middle class. So adoption wasn't really an option for us. So at the time, we were like, hey, let's do foster care. So we began the foster care journey. And my mom was just continually moved over and over by the fact that every time she got a phone call, she never said no. She was known as the mom who would not say no. So a social worker would go, hey, I got a kid and I need some place for them today. And my mom would say, yes, bring them over. So our home was filled with about 36 kids came through our house in a 7-year period. So me as the biological brother, I stayed all the way through, got to meet every kid, helped take care of every child. And I just got a front row seat to really the hurt that goes on in the world when a child is without the stability of a mom and a dad, when they're taken from their parents and placed in a foster care system. So for those 36 kids that came through for those 7 years, our family went through a lot of pain, to be honest. And so when the 36th child kind of left our home, my parents said, hey, well, I don't know if we can do the back and forth anymore. We're going to move to adoption. We need a permanent solution for kids rather than them coming in and coming out. So we started adopting. So my parents adopted 8 kids over about a 12-year period. They adopted 8 kids from about 5 or 6 different countries. And I say about 8 kids. We adopted exactly 8 kids. That's not a general term. From 5, we call it 6 different countries because my little brother was adopted from Cleveland, which we refer to as the foreign country. So we give him the foreign country nod. But they've adopted 8 kids. So, our family just kept growing and growing and growing. And I was so privileged and so honored to be a part of my family that when I moved out of the house, went to college, I moved to Los Angeles, and I kept meeting couples. I kept meeting people who were saying, hey, we would love to adopt, but I heard it's so expensive. And not even, sometimes an international adoption can be really expensive, but even a domestic adoption locally in the city can be very, very expensive. So it's difficult for people to actually adopt because they just can't afford it. So I would call my dad and say, hey, do you have any friends? Can we help my friend adopt? And one at a time, we were doing our best to try to help people fund an adoption, help people get there. And my dad and I were like, hey, this isn't sustainable. So I was watching the Colbert Report, and he did a special on random night. I mean, it was a raging Friday night, I'm sure. And I was watching the Colbert Report, and he did a special on a guy who created a website called myfreeimplants.com. And I don't know this guy's name, but I think he started the entire crowdfunding movement around the world. Myfreeimplants.com was a website where girls would go on, say they wanted breast implants, and in order to get breast implants, that they needed donations. So guys would sympathetically or empathetically would go, absolutely, you do need breast implants, and they would donate. And in his first year, he had 4,000 breast implants.
Wow. So
I call my dad, and I go, hey, you got to go to myfreeimplants.com. And he's like, I'm at the kitchen table with the family. I'm not going to myfreeimplants.com. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, what this guy's doing for boob jobs, we can do to be able to help families. Like, we can actually fund this. We just have to crowdsource this. So he goes to it, looks at it, goes, okay, I totally get it. And we started creating the background, the layout. We got the 501c3 from the U.S. government, which took a minute or so just to be able to find a way, because we thought we wanted to create an irresistible fundraising environment for a family so that finances were never a reason that family couldn't be united with a child. So we wanted that to be tax deductible. We got that squared away. And we launched on my birthday in 2012, and about 1,000 days into operation, and again, we're all volunteers. This is a passion project of ours. It's a family business. My wife, my cousin, my dad, it's a whole handful of us. In our first 1,000 days, we helped fund 982 families, and we raised $4 million with over 16,000 donors. So we've just been on a ride and a roller coaster and just had a total blast getting this thing started.
That's amazing. You know, I'm a big believer in visualization and, you know, seeing things before they happen and, you know, putting it down on, like, what I use, a dream board with DreamItAlive.com, which we provide one of those free dream boards for people to use. I'm just curious, like, this thing is a huge endeavor, huge vision. I mean, what did you originally vision this to become, and how has it manifested into that?
You know, it's funny you say that. I didn't know that you had that as a part of the work you do. But I had a friend who, when we were working on the 501c3 project and trying to get the government to give it the go-ahead, he sat down and he said, I want you to write out a press release of 5 years from now. 5 years from now, what press release do you want to release from this thing? And I was so annoyed. I was like, man, I'm not writing I'm not writing a fantasy press release. We got work to do. I got a to-do list longer than I have hours for. What are you trying to do? He's like, no, you got to trust me. And I remember typing out, and I have it somewhere, and now that you say that, this is the first I've even maybe thought of that moment, is I typed in there that I wanted my dad to be connected somehow to the UN and to the work we're trying to do to help the UN solve the fatherless and motherless children. And I wanted to create a world with no more orphans. I wanted the entire world to be focused on, I wanted the planet of every person living, every person around, every person in power, every person with influence, focused on the injustice that occurs when 19 million kids in the world go another day without a mom and a dad. And that's what we wanted to do. And so now that you say that, what's crazy about that is, to the culmination of World Adoption Day, yesterday felt a lot like that. So as you describe having a moment where you kind of visualize that, I remember the Starbucks coffee I was sitting in, and it was probably 4.5, maybe 5 years ago, where I had visualized that, and we just were working towards it. Many, 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 many hours of tedious, boring, late-night work that is just hacking away. But that vision is what drove us.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, walk us through what happened this weekend. Give us a glimpse of the excitement and this hangover that you've now had because of it. I mean, adoption hangover.
Totally. Yeah, my adoption hangover. Well, we have a great team of volunteers here in Los Angeles, about 20 people who we do events together, we do fundraisers together, different things. They work on the website, the design, all that you see is driven by volunteers. And so we just having a meeting, and we were about to hit our $5 million mark. And I said, hey, when we hit the $5 million mark at the end of this year, I think we should celebrate. And I have a friend who has a charity, or a business actually, where he sells sunglasses, and then a portion of the proceeds goes to give eyeglasses to a person in a developing country. So they celebrate World Sight Day as a big day. Then I have a friend who has a water well organization called Charity Water, and Scott Harrison, who actually co-founded World Adoption Day with us. he has Charity Water, and they do a big campaign around World Water Day. So I said, hey, since we're here, let's do a big thing around World Adoption Day. Can someone Google it and find out what day it is, and we'll throw a party? Well, that'll be when we plan our gala. And with 8 of us at the table with computers, none of us could find it. We're like, there's National Adoption Day, which is focused on foster care, kids in foster care in the U.S. alone. Then there was Orphan Sunday, that is a group that a lot of the Christians do and observe, which is a day where you acknowledge the presence of orphans in the world. But there was no global day to celebrate the families that had come together through adoption. There was no global day to celebrate that union. And so I was like, it looks like, and I announced at the table as a joke, hey guys, it looks like we're going to make this. And they were like, oh yeah, you can't make a day, whatever. So the next day I was like, I'm going to try to make it. So I called the UN and I just dialed whatever main line it was, got transferred a bunch of times. I said, I just need to speak to someone about international observance, because I wanted them, can I submit a day? Could I do something? And I was pretty, I guess, blown off would be the best way. I guess, yeah, I don't know if you call or if you need to know somebody. I didn't know anyone. And I texted a few people that had relationships and asked, and they said, nothing. So I was like, okay. So the guy goes, you can't do it. You're going to have to wait. It's a 3-year process of bidding and people vote and all this kind of stuff. I go, okay, that's cool. I said, I'm probably just going to do it this year anyway. It's like in November. And he's like, well, you can't do that. And I was like, why not? Like, can I get in trouble? And he's like, no, you can't get in trouble, but it's not real. I was like, oh, I'll make it real. We'll do it the old-fashioned way through social media. And he's like, that doesn't work. That's not, and he just sort of, and he was really nice to me and very kind. And he sent me some paper and was really helpful. And I just said, hey, we'll just do it our way. So I started making phone calls, and I just called people and said, hey, I got this idea. I wanted to do World Adoption Day. We found a day that is in between all the other adoption observances. November is National Adoption Awareness Month. So we wanted it to be somewhere in there, and we wanted to be respectful and complimentary of all the other days. And we found a day in the middle of it, and I just started calling my friends and saying, hey, do you think people would get on board with this? Do you think this would work? And we wanted some way that people could connect, no matter whether they were adopted or were an adoptee, or if they had adopted, or if they just had friends, or they were connected somehow, or they just believed in a world with no more orphans. And so we created the smiley face. So we had people draw a smile on their hand and post a selfie of themselves online as a way that they could go, hey, this is my way of saying I'm in. And it's with our ethic that with Adopt Together, you may not be in a place in your life where you can adopt, but you are in a place in your life where you can support a couple and a family who's adopting. And so that's what Adopt Together has grown on, and that's what we wanted to make sure World Adoption Day had at its core. So we started asking people. We started asking people to co-found with us. We started inviting people to be ambassadors. Within about 3 weeks of having the website up, we had 150 ambassadors from about 7 different countries. Yesterday we had 8 events in 5 different countries. And we ended with about 260 ambassadors of people who said, hey, my job is going to be to get this word out, get it going. I grabbed 8 co-founders who were people that I knew were people they were influential, credible people, not only in the adoption space but in the nonprofit space. And I just said, all right, let's wind this thing up and let it go. And so we started tweeting and started inviting some influencers to tweet. And we got yesterday, based on our analytics, about 10,000 Instagram posts with our hashtag. We were averaging about 1.5 million to 2 million Twitter impressions every hour yesterday. And we were just having a blast watching different people pick it up, watch it go around the world. We were in almost every continent. Antarctica did not participate, but we were in almost every continent, and just we used the hashtag to kind of spread it all around. And so Forbes picked up a story, BuzzFeed picked up a story. We were just so fun to watch the snowball start to roll and roll and roll as a day to just celebrate adoption. Through our website, we've got about 50 people who have indicated, hey, we've wanted to adopt and always wanted to adopt, that we're going to connect to an adoption mentor and adoption advisors to kind of help them through that process. So we have a great sense that yesterday was a huge success.
That's amazing, man. That's just groundbreaking. It's interesting. You might not realize this because you sound like a guy who had a simple dream, simple vision, and it turned into something so magnificent. But you've taken this whole social entrepreneurship, for-purpose kind of venture, because I like to call for-purpose ventures instead of nonprofit, because you are creating profit, maybe not monetarily, but profit in terms of abundance for others. you realize that
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
thanks, man. You realize that you've actually turned the page on how to create an effective for purpose kind of movement. If someone else wanted to create, let's say, a World Adoption Day, not necessarily a World Adoption Day, but like an idea like World Adoption Day, let's say, mentor a kid day, and everyone in the world mentors a kid on this day for 8 hours. What steps would you suggest they do based on your playbook?
Yeah, I love that. And someone else asked me a question like that. They're like, do you think there's going to be a lot of people who create days now that we know you can, or that you can create days? And normally it's big organizations who do that, not volunteer-run family operations technically don't always do that. But for me, there's so many causes and so many things to get behind. I find days being really, really important because it's a way for all of us to share public attention and share public space. In my ideal world, we talk about adoption every day, all day, every year, but I just know there's too many things out there and too many things going. And so splitting it up to a day where I can ramp up to a day and go out of a day is really smart. So I would say if there's someone out there and you have something you care a lot about, you have something you're passionate about, something you go, hey, I'd love to create a social movement like this. To me, community and partnership is the number one thing that made this possible. And when I say community, my goal, when we started a for-purpose, as you say, organization or a nonprofit organization, I was so unaware of what Shark Tank nonprofits find themselves in because everybody's kind of competing for development dollars. And I wanted to be in the adoption space, and I was resisted by some because they saw the crowdfunding thing as sort of a slight to traditional fundraising. The adoption space was not altogether open to us, and some of the nonprofit space was not altogether open to us because they didn't want one more bucket that could receive donation dollars. So one of my visions for World Adoption Day was I just wanted to create like a neutral territory, a public square that we could go, we're all for this, we're all working towards that same goal. So that's what I would say is if you're going to create a day, partner with everybody else who has that vision in their heart and create a neutral space where you go, hey, this is the thing that we can all get behind. We can all get behind that one thing, which is we know that family is the solution to a child that has none. So let's get adoption on the forefront. And then I would say just it's low ego, and it's it's very humble to call a person and go, hey, will you start this day with me? We want to create as much momentum as possible. And I just asked people to help. But the biggest thing was I was asking them to help for something that was for us, not something that was for me. And I've always felt kind of awkward about that, like just asking people to – I've always been bad at self-promotion or bad at asking a person to help me because to me it feels awkward. I don't always say yes when people ask me to help them, but I feel weird for them to ask me. For this, I felt no restraint whatsoever because I knew they weren't helping me by creating World Adoption Day. I knew they were helping us and they were helping the world. And I think when you can create a space that's neutral like that you go, if this succeeds, we all succeed. That's what, to me, the essence of partnership.
Okay, no, that's a great playbook, and that does make a lot of sense. I want to dive into your background. You are a pastor, and it's awesome that someone of the spiritual faith or someone who lives a spiritual life for a living is doing something like this. I feel more people from the spiritual background need to do what you're doing. I'm curious, what aspects of your profession as a pastor or teachings from being a pastor helped you kind of create this movement, and also the adoption projects that you've done? Just curious. And you can go you can be evangelical, it could be non-evangelical. This is a no holds bar conversation, so feel free to say whatever you feel.
Awesome. Yeah, to me, that's a great question. A lot of people have asked me, and I sometimes hesitate to use the word pastor because I feel like people have emotions and images of what a pastor is that conjures up for them. So without being able to see a person in a person face to face, or without them seeing our church, our church is on the corner of Hollywood and La Brea. And if you drove past it, you would think it was a lot of people. Even Wednesday night, a lot of people come in. They think it's a nightclub. They think they're waiting in line for a club. They walk in. There's awesome music and extraordinary people and community. And it is just it's all the things people go to clubs for, which is I want to go meet good people. or I want to meet beautiful people or fun people. It's all those things, except we actually do meet and people do know each other and there is community. At the core of our community, one of our founding pastors, or our founding pastor who started Mosaic, which is the name of our church, about 20 years ago, he wrote a book called The Artisan Soul, which I encourage everybody to pick up. It's one of the most extraordinary writings on that space between creativity and spirituality. And at the essence, and I've been working with Erwin for about 10 years. He's my mentor and the person who's taught me most in life. And one of the essence of the Artisan Soul, and really of the ethic at the middle of Mosaic, is that the scriptures and the Bible is a creative manifesto. And everything that God did on the planet was both to set us free and give us the power to create. So when God creates man, that's his first act is a creative act. The first thing he asks Adam and Eve to do in the garden is to name the animals. And the first thing he asks Adam to do is a creative act. And then he looks at the two of them and says, be fruitful and multiply and continue in the creation, that he's in a constant state of creating. And for too long, religion has stood at this space where it felt like it had to defend the past, or it had to draw lines of morality or lines of behavior. And it was never intended that way. That's a couple 100-year-old model that should have retired a long time ago. But if you go to the Genesis, if you go to the beginning of the way God described man, if you go to the beginning of the words that Jesus spoke when he invited people to create, he invited them to act. And so for me, I don't see global problems as excuses to blame. I don't see global issues or even things that are going on in the world as a ho-hum, ho-drum thing, like look what's broken about the world. I see it as an invitation from the Creator God to invite us to go, hey, go create a solution. Many people, they get angry at God for things like war or poverty or starvation, and they go, well, how could there be a God in the world if these things weren't happening? And see, I think we have to flip that over, and I think God would look at us and go, I gave you the power to solve all these things, and I placed in you a creative spirit. How can you let this happen while you have that power in your hands? So to me, at the very core of not only Erwin's mentorship in my life, but his writings through the Artisan Soul and our ethic at Mosaic is, if there's anything broken in the world, God empowered all of us to heal it.
I love that. Well, one last question from me before we have a couple of audience questions. Sure. What is the most meaningful partner you felt that came from this? Or let me be more clear. You said you've worked with all you between you and the volunteers, you've made a global impact. What is one adoption story that you just, if you think about it, you'd be close to tearing up, if not tearing up?
Just in terms of an adoption story or a partnership?
Just from this whole weekend, actually, specifically, like what is an adoption story that came and you're just like, God damn, man, this is amazing.
Yeah, I think for me, at our church in Mosaic, we really launched World Adoption Day through the middle of Mosaic. And as they started hearing that I was doing it, I wanted to make sure that I didn't impose my idea on Mosaic or make them do it if they didn't want to. And people were like, dude, we've got to. And about midway through the day, I got on stage and I just said, hey, today's a really important day. And I hadn't said anything. I hadn't explained what it was. I had a smile on my hand. Nothing was really happening. But the stage had been set through social media and videos, and it had already kind of started to happen. And there's a girl that is a part of our church who I know is adopted, and she's about 25 years old, and she's just a beautiful soul and a wonderful girl. And I had communicated with her about World Adoption Day and what it was, and we shared stories of me being an adoptive family and her being an adoptee. And as I was on stage describing that today was an important day, I saw her hand raise up from the back of the auditorium and just stick high in the air with a smile on it, as the only hand in the air, just to show me she was there and she was ready to go, and this was a celebration for her life. And it gave me the chills as I was on stage going, it felt like the Mockingjay scene in Hunger Games. Like we had an image and we had a symbol, and it was us saying, we're for family, and there's 19 million kids out there that need to be paired with 19 million families. And if one day of awareness and one day of conversation does that, I just loved that who drove the story and the narrative that morning yesterday was one of our adoptees, someone who's been a part of our community for a long time and a close friend of mine. And I was just so grateful to watch that happen.
That's amazing. All right, well, we're going to get straight into these questions because we have, I'm happy to say we have some really good questions here. Janine has a question for you.
Oh.
Pastor Hank, I love what you're doing. I was keeping abreast of the Twitter feed. Are you planning to do more of these on a daily level, or are you planning to have more annual events?
That's a great question. You know, what's been really exciting is how World Adoption Day has sort of opened up a lot of opportunities, like even just introducing us to each other and really cool opportunities. We definitely want to watch World Adoption Day on November 9th can just continue to grow. We'd love to get the UN on board and have them give it the flag of approval someday. But for me, our activity and our work towards creating a world with no more orphans, our work of connecting children to families, it happens every day. So it's a daily thing for us, and it's a daily way we can engage. And so if people are interested or if people want to connect more, we are completely volunteer-driven. So if somebody goes, hey, I want to be a part of this, or I want to share and be a part of that, would love to have people just contact us through our website, through Adopt Together, or also with World Adoption Day. You know, we whipped this thing together. We bootstrapped this sucker this year. And so what's nice about having it be 12 months out is it gives us a chance. We started today even, and last night doing debriefs and doing things for 2015. So if people are interested and want to be connected and want to be involved, we would absolutely welcome their involvement.
That's awesome. Jeff has a question. Pastor Hank, Ash brought up a good point that what you're doing is taking social entrepreneurship and for-purpose kind of movements to a whole new level. Are you looking to do other types of movements using the success that you had with World Adoption Day?
That's a great question. You know, we've had a couple of people reach out to us to ask to consult on their days, like, hey, could you help us with either days we have or events we have, those sorts of things. So I think that'll be kind of the plan. For us, we're pretty laser focused on this large mission, which is, hey, can we actually connect these children to these families? And I think we'll probably stay there at least in the immediate future. One of the things we know is that there's ways in which, as successful as we've been and as quickly as we've grown, there's so much more work to do. As I've worked with different people in different countries, we've gotten more requests for Adopt Together to open up a Canadian office so that we can run adoptions through Canada. More requests probably than any other country. Also have that same request in the EU. Also have the same request in Australia, and a lot of requests from South Africa. So in our ideal world, we'd actually just keep growing the tool and the movement we already have, because there's just so many ways in which in our world, international adoption can sometimes create some tensions. Some people feel one way about it, other people feel the other way about it. Our goal is that there's just kids and families. So if there's ways for us to create domestic adoptions, if Adopt Together and World Adoption Day can help create domestic adoptions in Ethiopia to Ethiopian kids and Ethiopian families, we love that. That's our goal. So our job feels pretty big right now, and we're going to stay focused on kind of where we are, and then branch out and assist or mentor anybody we can who needs help.
Okay, that's awesome. Jennifer has a question for you. Pastor Hank, I'm really curious, how many kids do you feel you'll eventually adopt in your lifetime? That's a good question.
Adopt in my lifetime. Man, I have no idea. To me, I'm going to base that on a couple things. So I have two children biologically. Okay. And my wife and I do, and a lot of it will measure on on how my wife feels about that. My wife and I together. For us, adoption is something that I want to work. It's my life's work to help in as many adoptions as possible. And if we come to the season in our life where that's something that makes a total amount of sense for us in our home, we're going to jump on board and do that quickly. But for me, I can't adopt enough kids to make a dent in that world. So I'm working my world towards making sure that there's not a family in the world who has an open seat at their table that doesn't have the means or the information or the inspiration to bring that child home.
Okay. Well, this last question is from Selena, and I have to admit, it's probably the one that's most near and dear to my heart. Selena has a question
Cool.
saying, hey, I really dig the whole conversation about visualization and using dream boards. What role do you feel visualization has with having faith in the Lord and or whatever you choose to feel as the person as God or higher source?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Before this phone call, I had a conversation with a neuroscientist. A lot of what I like to do is I like to connect not only the spiritual and the creative, but I also like to connect the neurological experience people have to the spiritual. Because for many years, information was the way that you proved you were spiritual. If you knew lots of things, or if you read lots of books, or if you did something. But we all know someone who knows a lot of things and they're actually a huge jerk. And their spirit is actually abrasive and not somebody who's kind or that would represent a God you'd even want to be near. But our image of God, our imagery, our vision in our mind, the way we would visualize God, actually becomes informed by the people who are either those informational-driven people, or they are just the judgmental people, or they're the ones who are the dogmatic. And so for me, what's really important in terms of visualization, as well as neurologically, is to understand actually who God is and to read through the scriptures and see who the person of Jesus is. So part of what we do through our community is we invite everybody to read through the 4 Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because it's really a unique thing to hear God's voice. It's really a unique thing to pray to God, to invite God to hear your voice, and it's a really unique thing to imagine who God is. And so it's so important to have accurate visuals and clarity for who God is. So we invite people to read the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and go, if understanding the ethic of who Jesus is, and not be represented and visualized by him, by what happens on Fox News or what people say, because the word Jesus just has such a polarizing effect sometimes. And so much of it is Jesus is neither what one group says or what the other group says about him, but he is completely himself, and he's in that center. And so that's what I would say about visualization. I think it plays a huge role because throughout the scriptures, you see moments where God actually spoke to people through the image and through the vision of their life. And so there might be some people listening and some people who are part of your tribe, Ash, who they actually feel like they have this vision and they're working their life to accomplish it. And if you read through the scriptures and you know anything about God, you know that those can actually be God-given visions, that God interacts with us through what we imagine about a future, that God interacts with us about how we imagine our life in the future. And he actually gives us a vision that is so vibrant that we work towards succeeding it. And to me, I could only describe that as spiritual. And that would only echo what we know about God in the scriptures, that he draws and drives people towards creating that beautiful and creating that future. And he chooses to create the world that we live in through the people that he empowers to it. And so I would say if there's people listening and you have a vision, or you are in that practice like what Ash has about just visualizing and creating a vision for your future, that is a spiritual act to reach deep and go, how has God crafted me? What am I made for? And what am I designed for? And what world do I see? And how can I work towards accomplishing that?
Okay, cool. Well, on that note, before we end this interview, what is the best way to get involved with your movement for all our listeners out there?
Yeah, awesome. You can just email us info@adopttogether.org or worldadoptionday@gmail.com. And I would say the number one thing we're looking for at this point is on the Adopt Together side, our number one need, the thing we're constantly in need for, is we're in need of people who create visuals for us. So graphic design, those kinds of things, because we're in a constant state of creating visual ways of capturing data, that sort of thing. So people interested in that. The other thing we've created with Adopt Together is we have this group that is really brand new. It's called The Family. And it's people who are a part of the funding group who help fund our operational expenses. So to be a part of the family, there's people who give anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 and above. So $1,000 a year, you come into the family. We have dinners and different pieces. It's a way of being involved in that community. And last year alone, we had 12 people who were a part of the family. Those are the people who basically made Adopt Together possible financially. So we want to invite people to be a part of that, and they can email us and just let us know if they want to be a part of that. For World Adoption Day, we're ramping up for next year. So if you have ideas or people or anything, we are a wide open board to go. Hey, we went bigger than we thought we'd go this year, and we can't wait to see what happens next year.
Awesome. Well, Hank, thank you so much for making the world be a better place, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in the near future about collaborating with you and helping you with your movements.
Awesome. Ash, so appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you, and I love getting to talk about this stuff. It's my life's work, so getting a chance to share it with your tribe as well as interact like this is a real gift for me.
Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too. Take care.